Greetings. Greetings. Hello. Greetings and welcome to Conversation with Tony Mobley. On Conversation with Tony Mobley today, I have a guest that is coming in from other part of the world, Mr. Robert Sababady. This is episode 19 of 2025 of Conversation with Tony Mobley. We are powered by mimoLive. And interesting enough, our guest today is also a mimoLive user, and we are looking forward to having a great conversation today. You can watch this conversation on our YouTube channel, or you can go to our website, conversationwithTonyMobley.com. We have an interactive chat. It's called Mokana, and it allows you to ask your question. And not only can you ask your question, you can vote on other questions that may be there also. And if you choose not to use that system, well, you can ask your questions in the YouTube chat. And we're going to get right into it right now. So we're going to start with our very first question. But before we do that, we want to say welcome, Robert Sababady, coming all the way in from Poland. And I am excited for us to have this conversation today about mimoLive. But before we get into that, we're going to also talk about what your real job is in terms of the things that brought you to mimoLive. And first, let me just say welcome.
Um, Thank you, Tony. That's very kind of you. And it's lovely to be with you and see you and have this opportunity to talk with you again. It's always a great pleasure. Um, what do I do on a daily basis? My wife and I run a small business. It's an interpretation agency, and we run events with interpretation. So interpreting into multiple languages, from multiple languages. And of course, I'm focused more on the technical part of the event production, and hence my exposure to Zoom and now to mimoLive.
Well, um, do you want to tell us a little bit more about your family and the things that brought you to this point? Um, uh, the reason I'm asking is because you have been on before, but it's been a long time. And if you just want to share a little bit more before we get into mimoLive, I know that's going to take over most of the time that we have today, but I just want you to just share anything else that you would like to share for our audience today.
Um, Thank you, Tony. That's kind of you. We are all doing very well, and our kids are in homeschooling, and they're coming to the end of their school terms, so they're busy with exams at the moment. And of course, with homeschooling, when a child goes for an exam, it's not only the child's exam, it's the parent's exam, because you are totally responsible for what the outcome is as much as the child is. And my wife and I are very busy at the moment in the heat of the conference season, the beginning of the year, especially the beginning of the second quarter when financial results are out. And so a lot of companies are meeting up and talking about the results and how they intend to improve them. So little sleep, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning here. So yes,
Wow. Wow.
this is a difficult time of the day for us.
Yes, we want to say thank you so much for your sacrifice. Please talk a little bit more about the process of for live translation.
Okay, so we live translation incorporates a couple of areas. The first one is interpretation. In other words, as we talk, a human being, would be interpreting into another language, and someone would be able to listen and follow through. And there are basically two types of interpretation. One is simultaneous, where it's happening at the same time on a different audio channel, so it doesn't interrupt the conversation. And the second type is consecutive, where I would speak, for example, a sentence or two, stop, and then the interpreter would interpret what I said into a second language. And then that sort of interpretation usually takes twice as long, or the meeting or the conversation takes twice as long because it's being interrupted all the time. But apart from that, with live translation, we also do live captioning into different languages. The challenge here, of course, is if it's just an ordinary conversation, the requirements for accuracy are pretty lenient. But there are institutions, especially in Europe, where the requirements are very high. They have to be over 98% accurate. And we usually have a human in the loop at that point who's reading the automated translations and captions, making sure that they are correct, and then it goes out. And then, of course, the final one is when we do a lot of captioning, in other words, putting captions onto processed films, especially for the corporate world, where there's short messages or training material that needs to go out to the whole world. It's quite fascinating. We don't realize this, but the multinational corporations do still send out a lot of their material in the languages that the staff are using the language or the material. So yes, that's a big thing.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Now we're going to get into it. Why on earth would you be using mimoLive with your business?
Okay, when it comes to the whys of mimoLive itself, and why we chose mimoLive, I wouldn't like to start comparing mimoLive with other platforms, but I've always used software encoders. So initially we came out from vMix, and then at one point we decided that we want to move all of our production platform onto the Mac environment. And we tried a couple of tools, and mimoLive sort of was just the number one in so many different ways. It's so intuitive to use. The whole of the interface, if I can use a phrase, I would say is in natural language. It's the sort of language you'd expect if you're speaking with someone. And so it's very intuitive to use. The other thing is it's versatile. There's so many different ways you can use mimoLive, especially look at what we're doing over here. You're using mimoLive and you're using the SDK for Zoom. So we're bringing in each other from Zoom into mimoLive and then producing the event. And it's also very quick to configure. I was really surprised at the way, if something new comes up, it's easy to go and set it up. Of course, I don't encourage people to do things on the fly during a live production, but it is easy to set up.
I understand that.
I think we can all relate to that. It's one of those things that you want to do, but you should never do it. And the other thing is the reliability, and mimoLive is robust. It is really, really solid. And I think that comes from the program itself and the fact that it runs in the Mac environment. I find it so much more stable than using anything on a Windows platform. Maybe it's just like Macs are just as intuitive and simple to use as mimoLive, and that's why I like them. The simplicity appeals to me. But those are the main reasons that we use it. And how do we use it? Maybe that's the other part of the the
Yes.
conversation, Tony. Um,
Yes.
Initially, we started off because we do interpretation and we've got multiple language channels. When we stream, especially live streaming of an event to a corporate, for example, network, um, I needed a way to embed different language channels into the video that we're sending out. Um, and that came from Microsoft Teams to WebEx to Zoom. It was all the same. Zoom, of course, initially was the best because we had the functionality of interpretation available right very early on in the development of the Zoom platform. As soon as COVID hit, Zoom already had interpretation. I remember I got a special clearance to test the interpretation functionality with Zoom, and then we started using it. And so we were always looking for a way of embedding a different language into the feed that we were sending out. And so that's where it all came from. Um, as we continued down this journey of producing events with interpretation, COVID ended, the lockdown ended, and we got into hybrid events where we had groups of people in different locations. And once again, mimoLive turned out to be a really good solution for that because we could configure mimoLive in one way and duplicate it very easily in the different locations by just sending out a file. mimoLive runs what it calls documents, and you can share a document to a different location as long as you've got the license and all the similar or the same equipment that is being used. It jumps up, pops up, and you're running without any delay, any problems at all. And the beauty about doing that is that if you do get a problem, just figuring out what is not working is so easy because you've got the same configuration in all the different locations. So to give you an example, we had an event where there were 3 large conference rooms in 3 different parts of the world, and they're all talking in 3 different languages.
Wow.
So yeah, and then there were a couple of thousand employees in the rest of the world who wanted to be able to watch that and listen to the language channels that are available. So we actually set up in mimoLive, got the document, and sent it out to the 3 locations. And it was very easy then to talk and bring up the 3 instances in the 3 different locations because they were exactly the same. They were configured the same. Sure, you may have had a different camera here, but the input was the same. You were naming it the same. You knew what we were looking for. So that was really the beginning of it. And now I've got to the point where we've been asked by several of our clients to be able to produce and live stream in a vertical and a horizontal format. Now, that is a challenge because if you're going out to YouTube, to Facebook, and at the same time you want to go out to Instagram or TikTok, you do have some challenges. And of course, it's a lot to do with framing and the way we are framed by the camera on the main image. And of course, you can set up 2 cameras, one with the vertical exposure, one with the horizontal, and have 2 instances of Zoom, for example, running. But it becomes very complicated. And so what we were looking for is a simple way to use it. And this is when I started really playing with mimoLive. And if I can just share something quickly with
Please,
you,
sir.
is
Go
that
ahead.
this is coming in from our event, and I know there'll be a certain amount of delay and the audio will be out of sync because what we see here are 2 feeds that are going out to YouTube from this very setup that we have here, Tony. So what's happening is I'm using Zoom ISO, which is one of the production tools that Zoom has made available for us, and bringing that into mimoLive, and then taking the same feed and sending it out by RTMP to YouTube in a vertical format and in a horizontal format. So the beauty about this is that we get someone who's looking at himself on Zoom and in the horizontal format. And even if I'm going to move off frame slightly now, if I go to one side, mimoLive will autocorrect the vertical output. It's taking a little bit of time. There's a little bit of lag through the internet, but it'll come through now. It seems to be coming through. Okay, so it'll bring me back into frame because it's got face tracking switched on only for the vertical layout, which is really useful because when you have someone, I'm going to stop this share if it's okay.
That's fine.
It's very confusing to watch someone speak when his lips are out of sync.
This is amazing, and I shared with you in our earlier conversation that I hadn't seen two up like that in the different formats before. It has been always one or the other, but to see both of them up was actually very interesting. And thank you for sharing that. I want to ask you about, you talked about the large crowds of individuals and that you've shared, but I want to talk about the possible use for this for much smaller groups like houses of worship that would, have 50 or so less people, maybe 50 people or less, and them using mimoLive. I think that it's a great tool for them if they want to do um, hybrid worship services where they, are able to, um, for lack of a better word, minister to those who are not present in person. And I just wonder what your thoughts were on that.
Okay. I'll have to admit, Tony, that I haven't done this. But if I were to, one of the beautiful things about mimoLive, it took me a while to understand what that name actually means. mimoLive. Mimo seems to be associated with something from our childhood, but what actually is it? And it took me a while to understand from the documentation that it's MI for multiple in, MO for multiple out. So we're bringing in multiple feeds into mimoLive, and we can format and send out multiple feeds out. So what does this actually mean? It means that we can produce something that is in mimoLive and is going out onto, for example, a big screen or to a stream over YouTube. But we can also, at the same location, have different formats or outputs coming onto different screens. So I can imagine a situation where, for example, I'd have the text for certain songs or something or prayers that is coming in as one feed, and we're putting that and formatting it on the produced output that goes to YouTube or to whatever platform that we're sending it to, where we see one of the pastors and we see the words, the lyrics, or whatever it is that we want to show up, or the piece of scripture. But in the house of worship itself, you want a different format. You just want to see the text itself. So that's a separate output, okay? And mimoLive allows you to do this because you can choose and select which of the inputs you want to go onto which output, and at the same time having them all in mimoLive to be able to put them onto the program feed that's going out to your online attendees. And I think of it in that way because that's something we do for just our corporate hybrid meetings as well. So we will have, for example, a presentation coming in, and camera feeds coming into mimoLive, and music, and we'd have slides of that represent the names and the titles of the different people who are speaking. And then on site itself, um, using Zoom, once again, slightly different tool, but tiles, we would pull out the individual feeds from mimoLive that we want and be able to show them out in public on site. I understand that in the house of worship, we wouldn't be showing any of the attendees literally, but you can imagine a situation where there are certain attendees that do come online and are visible.
Absolutely. There is an occasion for where you would have certain individuals that would not necessarily be the spokesperson for the worship service, the leader of the worship service, but other people participating. And there would be a time when, if you're showing a choir, or if you're showing someone just doing announcements, or anything like that. And part of the reason that I wanted to sort of talk about this from the standpoint, all of the amazing things that you're doing. And before we go any further, if you want to share your business website, um, or how people can make contact with you, please do that at this time. And
And of
so
course,
if
I'm
you would,
totally unprepared to do this, so I will just
well, okay, so we can
say
we
it.
can well, let me ask this question or make this statement, and then you can share what you want to share about how people can contact you and reach out to you. Um, in preparing for this conversation with you today, one of the things that I did was I did a couple of shorts and a couple of little um, pictures and things that on social media. And the thing that I was emphasizing in those things that I was presenting to on social media was that think about, if you have a Mac computer, that you have an opportunity to have your own television station. And that was, and the reason why I presented it that way was because I want people who have a Mac computer to think about looking at it, checking it out, seeing if it's something that they want to do. Why do I want them to do that? Because I think that we live in an age where one of the advertisements about mimoLive is think about having a production truck um, on your computer. And so this is a time where an individual that has a Mac computer can have their own television station. What a great time we live in. I think that that is absolutely amazing. That any individual that just happens to have a computer that runs Apple software is able to have their own television station. Now, of course, there are some other things that they need. They need to have a good mic, and they need to have a decent camera, but some of the latest Mac computers, laptops have fantastic cameras on them. They're not, $2,000 or $3,000 cameras, but they're pretty good. They're decent, and so I really, really want to emphasize that you as an individual now have the power to be able to create your own network, your own television programming. If you want to do the weather, there are graphics that you can pull in and have the green screen just like the person that you're used to looking at on TV with the map of the land and showing the clouds and where it's raining and all of these are amazing things that people have access to, and all they have to do is have a Mac computer. And I'm passionate about this is because, and I'll be transparent with you. Um, I think that there is a divide in this country. I think there's a divide in this world. And I think that technology is a way in which you can level the playing field. I think a tool like mimoLive, I think I think everyone should have, and I'm not a spokesman for Zoom, but I think everybody should have at least a free account. I think everyone should have a free Zoom account. But something like mimoLive where you can actually have your own production. You think of it, we can, each individual person could actually get a subscription to mimoLive, and they could have programming after programming. They could have programming 24 hours a day, different shows one after the other if they wanted to do that. And so I am in awe of the things that you have shared with us so far, but I also want to let regular people know that this is something that you can do too, and you can do it for the low cost of whatever a Mac Mini M4 is costing right now. I know it's less than $600. So for $600, you could have your own television station. Now I'm gonna get off the horse talking about that, but the reason why I felt comfortable enough to have this conversation with you in this environment was because I know that you are doing some amazing things with large groups of people, but also I know that in past conversations that we have, that you're very sensitive to the plight of regular people, people with disabilities, people who are in all different forms of needing assistive technology and those kinds of things. And so I hope you don't mind me breaking into all of that. Now, let's talk about how people can contact you.
Okay. I think the easiest way is to get onto our website, which is oiww.eu, oiww.eu, or to get in touch with me on LinkedIn. I am. I believe that LinkedIn is the best address book in the world because everyone keeps their LinkedIn contact details up to date. And no matter what you do, where you move to, you still have access to LinkedIn and to the address book that you have built there throughout the years. So I'm very active on LinkedIn, and that's the easiest way to contact us. But just going back to your thoughts, and Tony, about everyone having access, I actually know someone who is in the process of, because of my influence in talking about mimoLive, is lives on a farm and talks to a lot of farmers online. And initially, it started off as a podcast and is now using mimoLive to try and build up a TV channel. And it started in a very simple way with just one camera, a couple of cameras being set out over the farm, showing different places in the farm, the animals, the barn, etc. And then a programmed times, that person comes on live and talks about what's going on in the farm, what he's been up to, what technologies he uses. And so that is evolving very easily and very quickly. And anyone who is, knows someone who works on a farm knows that they that is a life that is very, very time restricted, and you have very little control of your time. You can plan and start doing things, but there are so many things that come up during the day that nudge you away from what your primary tasks are. And so having this feed for him has worked really well. And of course, we talked earlier on about Opus, and he uses Opus to pull out different clips of important parts of the day and summarizes the day in 2 or 3 Opus clips. Because there's no one, I don't think there are any viewers who sit there and watch one channel 24/7.
Right.
Yeah. The other community that I've been speaking to about mimoLive is the gaming community. Now, the gaming community is a huge, huge market. However, the gaming community is also a market that is very, very influenced by trendsetters. So if someone, for example, the majority of gamers stream to Twitch, and they use OBS mainly to do that. And OBS comes up with it. Someone comes up with a new plugin that is shown, and everyone wants to have it. And so they find it difficult to do the same with a Mac mimoLive based product. However, I've been showing them that the tools that you can use and that are available give you a completely different dimension. And there's also that educational purpose. Do you want to be one of the million and look identical to them, or do you want to be the one that's standing out amongst the million? And that's
Absolutely.
the mimoLive use case.
Yeah, I agree with that. One of the things I want, and there's no secret that we are using mimoLive for Conversation with Tony Mobley. One of the things that I wanted to share is that we actually have a young man who is our technical director. He's not working tonight, but he's from Queensland, Australia, and he controls the show from Queensland, Australia. And it is amazing to see him cut the show. Now our producer today is doing double duty. Clyde Lopez Waterman is doing double duty, and it's just amazing. And team, can you let me know in my ears if I can just show our mimoLive setup? Can I switch to it? Let me know in my ears if I can do that. And while I'm waiting for an answer from them, I'm going to read the next question. We have a question from, okay, I've got the okay on that. So I'm going to read the question from Liberty White, and then I'm going to go to showing our background. So we have a question from Liberty White. Absolutely fascinating, Robert. Outside of the technology, what challenges do you have to confront to produce a solid event?
One of the let me start from a very high level and then say that being involved in the office hours community, I've really learned a lot about quality, and the standards there have been set so high that producing an event, if you're in the office hours community producing your own event, you sort of feel overwhelmed by what should be done, and yet the expectation by a lot of people is not that high. So a lot of our clients don't have that expectation that the office hours community shows and produces. However, so my challenge is always being stuck in the middle there of knowing what I should be aspiring for, knowing what the expectation is, but delivering something closer and closer and closer to what office hours is delivering, but keeping it in a budget that is manageable and affordable to our client base. So I think that is our biggest challenge at the very high end. But going back to some basics, the basics are the audio, and from my days of learning how to work with interpreters online, I was quick to realize that your video can can drop for a couple of frames. You can lose it for a minute or two. As long as you have the audio, nothing's going to happen. The show will go on. But lose the audio for a minute, and the whole place becomes very, very quiet and awkward. So the day-to-day challenges are all with audio, getting the sound right, getting a good quality sound, and doing that in an affordable way for the people who are using it.
Thank you so much for that. And I'm just going to do share my screen. And so what you're looking at now is our mimoLive for Conversation with Tony Mobley. This is what it looks like. And there was a lot of activity before I shared the screen, so I think I think they've gotten kind of quiet in terms of sharing, pushing buttons and moving things around. But while it's on this, I just want to share that you are coming in from Poland. We have Mickey Makature who is helping us out tonight. He's coming in from the Philippines. I'm in metropolitan Atlanta. We have Laura Thompson helping us, and she's in Texas. And we have Clyde Lopez Waterman, who I believe is in South Carolina this time. And so, and normally we would have our TD, technical director, um, Zachary Sorensen, coming in from Queensland, Australia. And it's just a seamless operation for all of these people, regardless to where they are in the world, to be able to connect to mimoLive and utilize it as a tool. So that's one of the things that I wanted to share. That, and as Robert has already said about the flexibility of it, it is an amazing tool. I would say to any business that is thinking about sharing their own content, that they might want to take a look at mimoLive. And for those people who have um, used OBS, this is something that would be a little bit different, but I think that you would learn to love it. There is an opportunity to have the owners of mimoLive are very um, available to um, hear from you in terms of input and questions and the development of mimoLive. mimoLive, I think, is a fantastic tool. I am not on the payroll, but I do. It is a product that I do believe in. As again, without trying to be redundant, I just I'm happy about the opportunities that software package like this presents for people. And
And
so
if
our
I can
next
just
question,
say, sorry, if I can
sure,
just say
sure.
one thing, that the screen that you showed and shared looked as very busy. There was a lot happening on there. But the way I think of it when I look at a screen like that is you have all of your inputs coming in on the left-hand side. So all of your feeds, they're coming in. And well, not over here, the other screen that you were sharing. Yes, that one. So all of the inputs on the left-hand side. In the next column, because these are literally columns of stuff that you can put in there and take out, you're saying what happens to those specific inputs. In other words, if I have a sorry, if I have a feed that's coming in that's that wide and I want to narrow it down, this is where I'll do it. If I want to put two people up, this is where I do it. And then the right-hand side is saying, where am I sending that to and in what format? And it's a really simple way of thinking about it. There are various functionalities available below that help you make the production easier. And that's this previous screen that you showed. And it is, yeah, so basically what we have over here is we can select what we want to go out to the production output. In other words, to YouTube at the moment. So whatever we want, just click on it. And we usually use a tablet, which is a touch screen piece of equipment, and just tap on it, and you're gone. So that it's busy, but it's actually a very simple to understand and very intuitive layout that we have there.
You definitely can control everything with an iPad. That's one of the features of mimoLive. You can control an entire show on an iPad, and so it's just an amazing tool. Um, Robert, I thank you so much for sharing it. I've been kind of searching around and trying to reach out to a lot of different people that use mimoLive because I wanted to have this conversation. I try to have um, I try to have everyone on that's doing something special. I've had a vMix person on recently, um, and we've done Ecamm and we've done vMix and we've done um, a lot of the other applications that are out there. And so it was time for a mimoLive conversation since we are actually using mimoLive as well. So I wanted to do that. And so our next question is, what's next for Robert Sababady?
I'll answer that in a second if I can, Tony. If I can just give you an anecdote, because you mentioned about the programmers and the owners being available. Oliver, who is the main contact person at mimoLive, is an absolute amazing person. He was walking down to NAB this year, and we were on the Zoom test kitchen, and he was listening. Someone sent him a message on Discord that they're talking about mimoLive, and there's something there that needs to be addressed. And he jumped onto that session, walking through the crowd at NAB, contacted us and asked us how he can help us. I mean, when you think about the levels of customer service you need to go through to get to something basic at your home, and then you've got a show on with mimoLive, you're producing something, and Oliver will jump in if he knows that you need help. It's absolutely just, it's mind-boggling. It's unique in a lot of ways, and I realize that that's not sustainable in a large-scale environment. But like I said, it's simple and intuitive, so you don't need to reach out to Oliver for every simple thing. But the question you asked, Tony, what's
Well,
next?
and let me just say this too, Robert. There is a forum for mimoLive, so you can put your questions in and participate in the forum. There's a lot of good engagement in the forum, so I just want to say that. Now let's go to your answer.
What's next? I can look at that two ways. What's next for me today? Well, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to, after this show, I'm going to jump into bed for 3 hours, and then I have we've got the car packed, and we're leaving for a 600-kilometer drive because we've got a show this evening that we're going to be using mimoLive to produce. So
Fantastic.
that's like the
It's
immediate.
fantastic that you have a show. Not fantastic that you're only going to get 3 hours worth of sleep, but thank you so much for that. So that was the short term answer. What's next for you? Long term answer.
Long-term answer is I'm getting more and more people involved in using mimoLive amongst our staff, amongst this in the student community. I work a lot with students from the film school here in Poland, and mimoLive for the film school is like a blessing in disguise. It's such a simple tool for them to use to produce very high quality um, short films, programs, live events. I learn from them all the time because I don't come from a production background. And so working with students at the film school has really helped me understand the way they see their perspective, the way they see things. Um, and I'm going to continue working with them and helping them get access to the tools they need, including mimoLive, so that they can um, get the skills and do just some amazing things, which they already do.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that answer. And we're down to our final question. You're speaking to the world. What do you want the world to know?
Tony Mobley, you ask the most amazing questions. And I'm saying that just to give myself some time to think. Think of an answer that will not sound which has some depth into it. I I think the my message at the moment to the world would be not to be afraid to just jump in, dive in, do it, and whatever problems come up, deal with them. There's a uh, I often get myself in a situation where I overthink things, especially when I'm preparing for an event. And I have this little drawing of a child learning how to walk. And I remember the days when my children were learning how to walk, when they would literally fall over, bump their heads. And all I needed was to stand there and say, well done, come here, and put my hands out. And they'd come running to me. But the bump wasn't an issue. We all had bumps when we were learning how to walk, and we all know how to walk. So I think this is my thought for today is with technology, don't be afraid. Sometimes you get a bump or two, but you learn from mistakes, and at the end of the day, we can all do it.
Thank you, Robert Sababady, for being here. Thank your children. Thank your wife so much for allowing you to stay up late like this to be on this show with me. Uh, um, I really appreciate you. And I'm looking forward to us collaborating on what we're doing with mimoLive as well. Because I learned some things in the early show about the things that you're doing, and I'm excited. And I'm also excited about the things that you have shared in the Zoom Test Kitchen when it comes to mimoLive. So we're going to continue to do that. Thank you again so much. And I
Thank you
want
for
to say
having me, Tony.
thank you, sir. Conversation with Tony Mobley is produced by valued audio visual professionals who meet daily on Office Hours Global, hosted by Alex Lindsay. We want to say again thank you to mimoLive. We are powered by mimoLive. We have conversations with real people. Stay tuned for new and great conversations on Conversations with Tony Mobley. We want to thank everyone for the 100 plus episodes of Conversations with Tony Mobley. And if you have time, we ask that you go back and look at some of those past conversations. We think you will find something that you like, and hopefully it is helpful for you. Conversation with Tony Mobley thanks Mr. Robert Sababady for being a part of our conversation today, for doing the work you do, and for being the person who you are. Next week, we're going to have Mr. Leo Mendel, streaming director and video production producer. We are part of what we do here at Conversations with Tony Mobley. We ask if you are on YouTube that you like and subscribe. And if you have time, we ask that you make a donation to us. You can donate your time or you can donate your financial gifts if you like. And there are multiple ways for you to do that at conversationwithtonymobley.com. It's at the bottom of our webpage. And we're going to say thank you, everyone. Thank you again, Robert, for this conversation. We're going to say good night. Take care. Good day, wherever you may be in the world. Bye bye.